Mexico. What are your feelings about what's going on? I mean, who knows what's going on in Washington right now? But yeah, it seems, I mean, and obviously Mexico is such an important tourism destination for everybody on this panel.
Yes.
Get some reaction about what you think, or can we convince this administration that kind of stop fooling around?
You know, I was sharing with Alejandro just a small anecdote. I was there in late December meeting with some folks from the Tourism Authority, et cetera, and you know, they were just talking a little bit about their friends, and there's a large contingent, obviously, at a certain segment of society in Mexico that sort of decamps to Vail and Aspen for skiing vacations in the winter. And just anecdotally, you know, a couple of the folks sort of shared with me that their plans had changed. They were heading to Vancouver because they sort of didn't quite know what to expect. And this is true. We've all experienced this. You read something in the media, you end up in some place, and the reality feels very different from what sort of your impression is, right? But I think, unfortunately, the image that we're projecting, whether it's for us to other countries as Americans and visitors and tourists, or for inbound tourism to the United States, both of which are vitally important to all of us in this room, to our GDP, et cetera, we're not projecting exactly the image that would lead people to want to conclude, gosh, I've got to put the United States on my list of destinations to visit this year, almost regardless of any country that you currently live in outside the United States, let alone Mexico, which is a tremendous partner, long history. And you sort of think, for all of the interest that we have in this room and in this industry, we've got to find a way to make sure that resonates in Washington,
Right, absolutely. Any other comments on what?
You know, real quickly, I think, look, we're all over the world. You guys are too. We're everywhere in the world, and everywhere. And so my experience in the world has been, there are the people and there are the governments. And most people around the world understand there are the people and there are the governments. Mm-hmm. And so I think as long as we aren't making it difficult for people to travel, we aren't restricting the travel, we aren't constraining the travel, then I honestly don't think in the near term, it only happens when you actually restrict the travel, you know, or block the travel. Mm-hmm. Other than that, you know, people, you know, went to the Soviet Union when it was a, you know, communist nation. China is today, and lots of people are going to China and coming back. And so in the end, people will travel. Yeah. But they have to be able to travel, and they can't be hassled in traveling. Sure. So if we hassle people in traveling, then that restricts travel.
I would agree.
So that's, for in the travel business, that's the deal, I think. Otherwise, governments come, go, and all over the world, and we've been in...
And Brian and Alex, you know, both have extensive resorts and hotel properties in Mexico and back and forth. What are your feelings about
50% of our hotels are in Mexico, and number one, let's get prepared to pay 20% more for the Corona beers. But that's not a big deal. But I have to say, I have two concerns, big ones. One is when Americans travel outside of the country, and in this case to Mexico, that's an import, okay? Mexico is exporting a service and Americans are importing services. If someone on the White House, I don't know who, but someone on the White House could think that, oh, that's an import, I'm gonna tax 20% of Mexico exporting tourism to Americans. So every time an American wants to travel to Mexico, now we're gonna charge 20% taxes on that.
Yeah,
that could clearly hurt. It would be kind of crazy, but now you can imagine that anything could happen. So that's obviously one concern. But the other concern is we got to make sure that, I mean, the country is completely divided, and we have to accept, whether we like it or not, that a lot of people support this man. And those people, a lot of them just trust him blindly. And if he makes it look like Mexico is the enemy, people will stop traveling to the enemy. Just like other presidents in the back did it with other countries. If they started seeing Mexico as the axis of evil, like in the day was Venezuela or Cuba or any other country, of course that would hurt us. That would hurt us badly. But it would also hurt the United States. And most importantly, it will hurt the humanity and the morals and the principles that the United States stands for. So those two are my biggest concerns. Number one, the tariff, if it would apply to travel or not, because at the end it's an import, and the perception of the Americans about Mexico being now the enemy. No? So I'm concerned. I'm a little bit concerned also about Fox News, but that's another.
Ryan?
Well, at the end of the day, I think it is unfortunate because all of us who love this industry, have a passion for travel, we understand when people meet in different lands, their walls
Absolutely.
break down. Not knowing someone is fear. Meeting them, knowing them, traveling, having a meal with them changes everything. And if suddenly, the perception is one of our closest allies and neighbors for many, many years is quote unquote the enemy, we have a problem in our industry. And as industry professionals, we should write our congressman and we should do something and take action.
Yep.
So now, that being said, we also have to protect our borders, but I believe in nets, not walls, right? So it's about a net, so make sure people have the proper visas and everything they need to do to allow trade to happen. But, the other approach just doesn't seem modern, I'll say.
Absolutely.
But I would like to, just pull back a little bit for a little controversy, is to say, I don't think they're being characterized as the enemy, and I don't think we should do that either. And so I agree with you if it got to that point.
Yeah.
But it's not there.
No, I hope it
And
doesn't
we
get-
shouldn't let that happen, and that is not a
right.
government, that's us.
That is
That's
okay.
the point.
That's us.
These are our
We
friends.
have the control of that. And so they're not an enemy or anything. And, and immigration stuff is a whole nother ballgame, and that's a whole nother conversation. We have a whole panel on that.
We could have now we could be up here for hours talking about other destinations.